We appreciate it from Madison, Wisconsin. Now, we have CNBC contributor and former Vermont Governor Howard Dean. We also have Wisconsin Republican State Representative Robin Vos. He co-chairs the state's Joint Committee on Finance, which passed the budget repair bill last evening. Vos is joining us after getting a police escort to our camera. Mr. Vos, thank you for coming on. It's kind of an act of bravery. I don't get this. All you're asking, you and the governor, you want some co-payments for pensions and health benefits, and because of this, the unions are going on some sort of general strike just for some co-payments? Is that right?
Yeah, Larry, thank you first of all for having me on. I really appreciate it. The story is getting out to the taxpayers, and you're exactly right. It's a very modest proposal that Governor Walker has, asking employees to pay half of their pension. Right now they pay almost nothing, and asking them to pay a small amount toward their health insurance. It's something that's already happening all across the country. The fact that it's radical here amongst people who are in the union is sad to me.
Governor Howard Dean, welcome back. You've had a lot of experience in this. I do not understand why, as I understand the facts, these union guys are being asked to pay co-pay of health insurance. That is substantially less than private sector counterparts. In your judgment, Howard, are they wrong to go out on strike and cause this disruption?
Larry, I don't think they, first of all, I think you made a terrible mistake saying this was an anti-democracy protest. These people have protested peacefully. They haven't broken any laws. There aren't any security issues. So I think that's the wrong thing to say, and I think you should, that requires an apology.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you regard it as pro or anti-democracy, Howard, that state senators, in order to avoid a vote, have left the state and crossed state line? Is that pro or anti-democracy?
Larry, the last time this happened was when Tom DeLay did this redistricting in the middle of the session when it wasn't supposed to be brought up for another 5 years. Tom DeLay is on his way to jail right now, so
well, then maybe they should go to jail.
Well, maybe the state legislature should go to jail. Look, this is what the issue is about. Everybody understands, and there have been give-backs been going on for some time during this recession. I think if the governor, first of all, the fiscal office has said there was no budget crisis, that the budget crisis started because the governor gave business tax breaks of $119 million, which is about the same amount that these being asked. That's what the Wisconsin fiscal office said. Whether it's not true or not, I can't tell you, but that's what they said. Secondly, if the governor wasn't so intent on stripping these people of their bargaining power, I don't think you'd have these kinds of demonstrations. Unions can be reasonable if you treat them respectfully, but to try to get rid of them is foolish. That doesn't save you a dime. Should they pay more in their health insurance? I happen to think so. I was on that side when I was the governor and had problems like this. Should they pay more for their pensions? Perhaps so. That's a bargainable issue. To take away their ability to bargain is wrong, and especially when it was ginned up by giving tax breaks to business people. We have seen the Republicans all over this country give tax breaks to business people and hurt working people, and I think we're sick of it.
Robin Vos, is the problem here so-called tax breaks to business people, or is the problem here that business is leaving Wisconsin and there's a huge budget deficit?
No, the problem is that Howard Dean is obviously getting his talking points from the same people who are putting out the union propaganda that's totally inaccurate. What we've got right here is a fiscal crisis in our state. We have a $3.5 billion deficit. Earlier this session, we put in some very small incentives for businesses to relocate here to Wisconsin. At the end of the day, we need to do things like this. The unions actually left the bargaining table last September when we asked for things that were much more minor than this. So the fact that now they say that they're willing to accept these changes is just showing exactly how disingenuous they are. It's all about their own agenda. It's all about saying that they don't want to pay more. There's a moving target where they try to keep telling us what the issue is. The reality is they haven't had to pay for these things. They're upset about having to do it now. And the taxpayers are the ones who definitely understand this because they get it. They've been doing this in the private sector for years already. It's time that we have the same thing happen in the public sector.
See, Howard Dean, I want to ask you, all the reports say there's a $3.5 billion budget hole coming up in Wisconsin, and that Governor Walker's proposal would actually prevent union layoffs and furloughs. Now, why doesn't that make any sense?
The right is, the question is, do people have the right to organize? It's not the money. The money, of course, people are going to demonstrate, and it has to be negotiated. And yes, the negotiations are going to be tough. You know, did the Wisconsin legislature take a pay cut? Maybe they should. Maybe the governor should take a pay cut. But the fact of the matter is, working people are always taking it on the chin. If you weren't trying to strip these people of their right to bargain, I don't think you'd have these protests. This is not about the money. This is about stripping ordinary working people of their right to bargain.
Robin Vos, let's talk about Howard's point about the right to bargain and stripping away collective bargaining rights. Why do you think that was necessary?
Well, first of all, this bill allows unions to continue in Wisconsin. They'll be able to lobby or negotiate over wages. They'll be able to, under a new process we just inserted into the bill, have a grievance process so they can continue to have issues addressed. So this is not something that strips away all collective bargaining rights. That's another talking point that's not accurate. What it does, though, it says that as we move forward, we need to ensure that we have every flexible tool at the local level. We're asking them to pay about 6% for their wages toward pensions and about 6% toward health insurance versus the current 12 that they would like them to pay. It's a very reasonable proposal. It's a very reasonable and rationed way. It's just unbelievable to me that this is still considerably below what the private sector pays, and they're somehow still thinking it's radical. It's just not accurate as compared to what private sector workers all across Wisconsin are paying already.
Robin Vos, are those union protesters behind you trying to drown you out?
They are doing the very best they can, and it's something that's been happening all day long. They've barricaded the Senate into the state Senate chambers. We've seen senators run out of the state because they're afraid to have a debate. They have been doing everything they can. One of my colleagues has been spit on. Our staff has been pushed. It's just the union tactics that they think they can intimidate us. But I am here to represent the taxpayers, and they are not going to intimidate the Wisconsin legislature, and we are going to get this bill passed and put Wisconsin back on the right fiscal status.
Howard Dean, when you were governor of Vermont, did you ever have state senators or legislators crossing state lines to deliberately disrupt the legislative process?
We were much more respectful of both sides. We don't have that problem here. We have honest dialogue between people that are straight up across the table, and we treat both sides respectfully, and that's why we don't have this kind of stuff very often.
Howard, do you think that...
We've had a respectful debate. So the idea that the legislature, I actually give credit to some of my Democratic colleagues, they have tried to have a respectful debate, but the problem is they are being egged on by these crowds that are really looking to stop it at any cost. And democracy sometimes means you win, sometimes means you lose. But the problem is they are trying to do whatever it takes.
I don't think democracy means you are stripped of your hard-earned civil rights, and that's what this bill is trying to do. And again, it's not the money. Everybody understands that everybody's going to have to give something. But when you give tax, this is just what the National Republicans are doing. Give tax breaks to people who make $1 million a year and then try to cut their Social Security.
And you're doing exactly the
same kind of thing you're doing in Wisconsin. You strip people of their pension benefits. You strip people of their health insurance. You take away their collective bargaining rights, and you give tax breaks to business. It is hard to swallow that when you're just trying to get by.
We're doing none of that.
Yes, you are.
We're not stripping anybody of their ability to have health insurance. We're not stripping anybody of their ability to have a pension. In fact, when this is all done, the state workers are still going to have a better pension than almost anybody in the private sector.
If you, and they also make an average of $48,000 a year. It's not so easy to support a family on $48,000 a year.
The average worker in Wisconsin, the average state worker, has $76,500 in benefits and wages. Now, granted, I know they do a good job. They are hardworking, but they are definitely not somebody who can't afford to pay a small amount toward their pension and a very modest amount toward their health
insurance. What they take home is $48,000 a year. That's before taxes. That's what they take home. You can talk about their pension benefits and all that other stuff. What do you think the average legislator makes in New Hampshire? In Wisconsin. I'm not just talking about what they get paid as for a Wisconsin legislator. I mean talking about the side, the lawyers, the other people that are working there. I think their income is probably a whole lot higher than the average teacher's.
Mr. Vos!
That's actually not accurate, because in Milwaukee, the average wages and benefits for a teacher in Milwaukee is $100,000. It is unbelievable the cost that we have.
That's the wage and benefit. What is it in Kenosha? What is it up north?
Well, they're all about the same, and that's what we're getting at. wages and benefits have gotten to the point where we want people to be well paid if we can, but when we have a deficit like we do, the fact that my Democratic colleagues want to go back to the taxpayer and have them pay higher taxes because somebody shouldn't pay 12% toward their health care, that just goes to show how out of touch you are.
I'll tell you what, I think if you go back and strip out the anti-union stuff in your bill, you'll find out there's a much more civil discussion that goes on.
Well, it's amazing that they walked away at the table last September when they hoped to get their Democratic ally elected because we asked for things that were much more modest than this.
So maybe they'll come back to the table.
The facts that you're talking about aren't accurate.
There's a democratic process. The Republicans won the election. They won control of the Senate, won control of the governorship. I think that you're all expected to provide some leadership. Ask them to come back to the table. But you don't get them back to the table by stripping them of their bargaining rights. Put that stuff out of the bill. I challenge you to do this. Put that stuff out of the bill, get all that anti-union stuff out of the bill, and then sit down and start negotiating with them over what they have to give back. They know they're going to have to give back something.
Robin Vos, I'll give you the last word.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to come on here. We are standing with the taxpayers all across Wisconsin. It is amazing the outpouring of support that we have been getting from the people outside the Capitol Square, the people who are in the reality of the world, not the place where we're sitting. We are going to get this done. We're going to move Wisconsin forward, and I am proud to say we're going to do it.
All right, we're going to leave it there.
Sounds like Barbaric to me.
Governor Howard Dean, thank you very much. As always, State Representative Robin Vos of Wisconsin. Coming up on Kudlow, I'm going to